Happy Sunday.
Happy Happy Sunday.
You, software turned on? Putting a lot
What's
of
that?
noise through. You're putting a lot of noise through right now.
Uh, Crisp. Let me check. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, that's,
It
dare I
was
say
on, but it wasn't.
that's much more crisp. Dare I say that? Yes, I do. I went ahead and said that. You've got to be
Nice.
on summer break by now.
Yes, we just finished. We just finished school last week. So
Alrighty. You got any
yeah.
big summer plans, or are you just bumming it around your hometown?
Um, so I have a few big summer plans. I'm still deciding whether to do like whether to get a job or do some summer classes or not, but some architecture friends and I have decided to come up with a few side projects to keep practicing over the summer. So we're going to do that. One of them is designing a castle for a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and then
Yeah,
we're going to come up with the other one.
put some of that academic knowledge you have to some productive use, right?
Exactly.
Now, Andrew's flashing us a ghost here. I don't know. Oh, he can explain the ghost now. It might be because he's now filled with the Holy Ghost. Does that sound right?
That might be it.
How you doing, other Andrew?
Good. How about y'all?
Doing good. Doing good. Looks like you're in the
Cafe.
cafe. Alrighty.
Oh, wow.
I'll go ahead and let you order. I think I'm going to mute you. Okay, he muted himself. Alrighty. Yeah. Got the castle coming along. What are your big dreams for this Dungeons and Dragons castle?
So my friend wants to rework this castle uh, that he's been working on, or that he's played the campaign for several times, and he just doesn't like the layout of everything. He's like, it's all wrong. I gotta, I gotta change it. So now we're redoing everything so that it's more kind of realistic, but not too much. He still wants it to be kind of the. It's all about a campaign where like a vampire's in a castle and you go to the castle and it's like this spooky thing where you think you're gonna have dinner with him, but then he attacks you and you have to like go to the throne room and defeat him or something like that.
You know
Uh,
what I don't know, I'm just having crazy ideas right now, but putting time travel into it what could be cool. As long as you stay
uh-huh.
inside the castle, you can like zip back to an earlier time and
Ooh,
like
that's interesting.
a wing that's now broken down and disheveled, like it's now perfectly repaired, and you can
Yeah.
go up the stairs, you know.
Ooh, that's a cool idea. Actually,
Demon talk, Mark. What do you mean by demon talk? Dungeons and Dragons is okay as long as you're killing the bad guys.
yeah,
Jacob
not
thinks
being the
time
bad
travel
guys.
is horrible and he hates it. You obviously have not played the PlayStation 2 masterpiece Dark Cloud, and specifically the Castle of Time, where as you're progressing through the dungeon, you're going back in time, and the rusty suits of armor that are attacking you become pristine and more powerful. Yeah, and you kill them, Mark. That's what you do.
Yeah, yeah, you're supposed to kill him.
Yeah, it's you got a vampire themed Dungeons and Dragons campaign. You kill them.
Yeah,
It's I don't know. This doesn't seem all that complicated to me. I don't know.
well, one of the things that one of the reasons my friend approached me on this is because it is well known in the department that I'm interested in church architecture and that I'm
Mm,
Catholic.
mm.
So apparently there's this chapel in the original map of the dungeon, and it's like uh, the deity that it's supposed to be worshiping is apparently very close to something like Catholicism, where it's like the deity of the eternal flame or something like that. So he said, I want you to design the chapel because I think you'll be able to do it well because that's what you're into. So that's one of the big things that I'm pretty much like I have that whole space to myself to design. And I was thinking of making it a big part of the campaign. Like maybe it's corrupted and you have to restore it, and that'll help you against the vampire or something.
Got to do an exorcism.
Like an exorcism, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Andrew
So
looks so tall right now. Look at that. He's a giant.
how'd that happen?
This gets okay. Mark doesn't like your project.
We're having time travel in heathen chapels. My other
He-
idea was to turn the vampire into a shape-shifting intergalactic space vampire, and he flies his castle from planet to planet and hides it underground, and then shapeshifts into the local aliens to prey on them. And then during the final battle, he flies into space at the edge of the solar system where the sun is weakest.
Of course, but the sun is weakest.
We could put that in, and the time travel, and the heathen temples, and it'll be
And you
great.
have to align a complex mirror system to shoot him with sunlight.
That's right.
Yeah, and somebody has to heroically sacrifice themselves. Get Michael
Oh
Bay to
yeah.
direct it. Get Michael Bay to direct the movie, and it'll make $1.5 billion, guarantee it.
Good idea. Oh man. So yeah,
Gosh.
that's our first summer project.
Alrighty. I've got to address the time travel haters out there. What about Back to the Future? Is that not a fantastic movie? I'm not saying it
Uh,
makes sense, but
I've
isn't
never
it a
watched it.
fantastic? Oh my gosh, Andrew! Before you get time
I shouldn't
traveling
have opened my
castle
mouth.
vampires, you have to just watch the first one, right? Like
Okay.
they accidentally spawned a bunch of sequels. It was that good.
Oh wow. Must be like alternate timelines or something.
Yeah. D&D Castle and time travel. All right.
We've got our new title for the video.
It's a goofy, funny movie. Yes. That's what time travel should be. And if anybody says that Dungeons and Dragons doesn't end up being goofy and funny, they're taking
Oh
it a little
man.
too seriously.
Yeah. I think
No.
time travel should always be taken with a grain of salt and just don't worry about all that paradox stuff.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
Because if you're just sitting there worrying, you're going to miss a great movie like Back to the Future or Edge of Tomorrow. You ever seen that
Yeah.
one?
I don't know if I've even heard of that one.
It's got Tom Cruise, and there's a war, and stuff happens.
Oh, okay.
D&D can be funny and goofy, but I like serious, dark RPGs. Everyone knows that you cannot time travel with salt. You immediately
Yeah.
have to replenish your salt when you land. Terminator. There's another great
Oh
movie that
yeah,
doesn't work
yeah.
without time travel.
You can't have a Terminator without time travel.
No. Oh. All righty. Very good.
So what's the deal with not traveling with salt?
I have no idea what Mark was on about. Um, and he knows how to get in here if he wants to explain himself.
Okay.
Well, I was looking forward to a very calm summer, but that's all changing now. Andrew K,
What
were you here
happened?
when I announced my new assignment?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Are you there? Oh no, you're not, obviously.
Nope, I'm still in my little cubicle. And to all 10 of you who are listening, I am not sure if I'm going to be able to continue doing this over the summer. So
No.
this Sunday evening slot might not be filled by me. There's a few details I got to figure out before I can commit to that. But I do
Mm-hmm.
think by the fall I should be able to, or by August. So at longest it would be like a 2-month break from all of these things. So anyway,
Okay.
somebody else will just have to pick up the slack and start hosting a Sunday night show.
Are
It
you
won't
just
hurt.
like, are you not going to have internet? Is that why?
Yeah, I just don't know what the computer situation is going to look like.
Yeah.
So what my housing situation is going to look like 100. Like, I've got all the basic details, but all the fine grained details. And what are we doing on Sundays? So yeah, we will figure this out. Hmm.
Yeah, could end up in one of those old stonemason monastery type things. I don't know if those come with power outlets.
I'm not expecting that, but I suppose it could happen. And then this Wednesday, I fly out for Chino, California. And I have to say, Chino, California, like I'm just not used to looking at the weather forecasts for that part of the world because
Hmm.
it's like a perfect sine wave, right? It goes up to 80 degrees in the afternoon, and then it goes down to 60 degrees at the evening. The wind goes up in
Hmm.
the afternoon. It goes down. I'm going to pull it up.
Okay.
The Weather Underground 10-day forecast here, just so you guys know that I'm not being silly. So, like, in the Midwest, all sorts of weather happens all the time. Then you come over here,
Here too. Yeah.
and we're going to present, we're going to share screen. The Chino, California 10-day weather forecast. Gonna pop that up there. And look at that. Look at how regular that is. It's like, oh my gosh, you know exactly what kind of weather we need to plan for.
Get the
What do you
rain
mean by
chances too.
extreme? Like such extreme weather shifts? I don't think of 20 degrees as an extreme weather shift.
It's
uh,
all mostly sunny or partly cloudy.
we are not used to such extreme weather here. Yeah, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about being extreme here, but look,
It's
it's just gonna
extremely regular.
I guess it's just gonna be perfect. 85 degrees in the afternoon and 60 degrees in the evening. Okay. Jacob wants me to look at 90034. I'll let Andrew back in here.
Hello, hello.
So we're gonna look
Hello.
at I gotta get over to the 10-day.
Oh, he's already back in his room.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I see what you mean by extreme. The ocean must keep things more regular.
What's going on?
Yeah, look at that. Look, it only goes with like 70 to 60 in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, that's
interesting.
10 degrees. Okay.
Instead of a 25-degree shift, it's just a 10-degree shift. Okay, that's what you're talking about. Now,
Yeah, water's pretty good for that.
yeah, that's what water does. Extreme mild weather. Oh, Bubblevis has a new. Not sure what to make of your new profile picture. It's very 1764 right there.
I like the hair.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to wear those really big white wigs sometime.
Gonna party like it's 1769.
Yeah.
All
Or
right,
at least convene like it's 1769.
I think Lynn's got the reference to the time traveling with salt. It's Warlock. I think that's the question she's answering there. Uh, Sounds like the
You
weather
can't time
wall.
travel as a warlock with salt?
I guess it
Are you
was
allowed
the
to
late
touch
80s.
salt?
I don't know. It's not even weather at that point. I'm with you, Mark. And there is a silver lining in Los Angeles, that's for sure. Talking weather. Listen, weather is the universal human reality because we all have to deal with it. That's why it's our first go-to to small talk because we always have that in common.
Yeah. It falls on the unjust and the just, so don't insult anyone by doing it.
That's a really great way of putting it. You should write that down, Andrew. The rain falls on the
That's,
just and unjust alike.
you know, I just might. Somebody hasn't written it already, you know.
We should get more streams of Chad on his mower, you know.
Yeah. A 10-day forecast system weather 300 plus days of the year. It's not weather. I'm with Mark on this one. That's not actually weather. Unless you live in LA, in which case there's nothing to talk about. That's why they had to make movies, because they couldn't talk about the weather.
We can talk about the movies.
That picture is Iva Sumeja, the best soprano of the world for evening music. Your 17-something was very good. Okay. All righty.
Mhm.
I don't know, man. I see big wigs these days, and I'm wondering, is that? Yeah. So, not going to worry about it. Andrew,
Okay.
I saw Andrew T. Excuse me.
Mhm.
I saw a picture of you at church today.
Yep.
What was going on there? If you care to share.
Bit the bullet and got baptized. Jacob was there. My roommates are there. Pretty much like everyone at church I knew was there. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Did
Yeah.
Jacob on this chat
Yeah, Federici.
in Minnesota?
Jacob's
No,
from
in
LA.
Oh, you're in LA.
Yep.
Which bulletin was it?
It's in his channel. Jacob's Discord server.
Oh, I thought it was like Father Big Mac saying, "Oh, at my church's bulletin, I saw your
Oh
face."
no.
I was like, "Wow, everybody went to
I don't
Father's
think we would
church."
perform a Coptic Orthodox baptism in a Roman Catholic church. I'm not
Oh,
even sure if we
okay.
could. Did they just spray you or did they dunk you?
They dunked me.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
I wish I could dunk people, but I'm born into the tradition that I am with just the infusion. Yeah.
Are we allowed to dunk people?
We are allowed to dunk people. It's
Ooh.
just priests don't want to get wet because we're all a bunch of pansies. So we don't dunk people. That and we do a lot of infant baptisms, and when you don't have one of your own, get a little nervous about putting somebody else's baby under the water.
I saw that one GIF of a Orthodox priest doing it, where he just kind of whoosh whoosh, and then the baby's like, "What just happened?" It's like, it's like just looking around, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's cool, I
Alrighty, and
guess.
so you would have gotten baptism, chrismation, and Holy Communion today.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I could just see the halo now. You're just radiating the Holy Spirit.
Oh,
Did you
wow.
speak in tongues at all? Okay, alrighty.
Still
I
don't
always
know
hope that's going to
Arabic.
happen. Yeah.
Soon, you gotta practice.
Yep.
The little kid said, "Where's the baby?" It's a very, very large baby.
Yeah.
Splashism.
Mhm.
Splashism. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, hey, big congratulations. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well done.
Mark, only the Orthodox have held on to the tradition of issuing halos. That's been lost in the West. Alrighty.
Mhm.
So yeah, how long, Andrew, between first showing up in that church and getting baptized was it?
Like a year and 3-4 months ish. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Jacob
Very
pushed
good.
me over the edge. He was like, "Andrew, if you're not going to another church, you should just bite the bullet and go to this one."
Mhm.
Yeah. I was like, "But Jacob, I've got 2,000 years of Catholic blood running through my veins." It was like, "You don't know any Catholics. You don't know any Catholic traditions." Yeah. And you've been going to this church for a year. So, yeah.
Yeah, those are all I am partial to Catholicism, but those are all pretty decent arguments right there. But the good news is that we would recognize all three sacraments that you got today as being the same as our own. Not sure if that's reciprocated. So as far as I'm concerned, you're just as full of grace as one of ours would be. Jacob feels the need to set the record straight here. So anyway, you guys can hash that out later on a.
Well, you can join anytime.
Yeah, it'll just be a profession of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe and profess everything that the Catholic Church believes and professes to be revealed by God. Boom, Catholic.
Wow. That was fast.
Yeah,
He's practiced.
yeah. Did that
Gotta
for
hand
a
it your hair
gentleman.
though.
I did that for a gentleman last week, and then confirmed him, and regularized his marriage vows, and gave him First Holy Communion.
Nice.
All right.
We can do it. We did it all in half an hour, which has that famous Roman brevity right there. It'd be like a 3-hour commitment if we were going to do it in a Coptic church.
Yep. Yeah. In the Coptic church, they talk about like taking stuff from monastic traditions, right, and just like importing it into the city. And yeah, you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not in a hurry.
Uh-huh. They've got portions of the hymns that are just like, different tones of just one letter, right? So like when you're first starting, I'm gonna hymn so horribly. I do not want to hymn on stream. But it's like
Are they like
the letter
going
O.
syllable by syllable?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
You're not gonna hit him on stream?
No, man. I'd do horribly. I'm not a deacon yet.
Okay, alrighty.
Is it like a singing hymn?
Yeah. Like chanting,
Oh.
That's actually where the word tenor came from,
Mm.
because as Western music was progressing out of the simpler chants into more complex multi-voice arrangements, one of the things they would do is they would take an ancient melody and an ancient text, and instead of just chanting it through the way it is, they would have some of the voices hold on to that. So you get tenor, which means holding on to it, and they would just hold on to the one note, and then have other voices go around on that, doing these other things there. So that's where the word tenor comes from, the ones who are holding on to the note.
Hmm.
Started to read that from that catechism link you provided. Read the first 2 pages so far. Very good. Big fan of the catechism. Got one right here. Recommend it to everybody. Yeah, most of the stuff at the back is like indexes and such, so it's not quite as big as it looks. Planning on reading 1 page a day. That'll do you just fine.
A couple of years, you'll have it all down.
Yeah. Yeah. Or he'll enjoy it too much and start reading faster. Now, do you got finals coming up, Andrew T?
Midterm V2.
Midterm V2. What does that mean?
They've got 2 midterms in these quarter systems. So yeah, I don't know why they call them midterms.
Do you get a summer break?
Yep.
When does that start?
A month or so from now. So
Wow.
yep.
I just keep chugging along.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, hey,
Mm-hmm.
gets you educated somehow.
This stuff goes so fast, it's crazy.
Yeah. That was my experience. Was my first semester of seminary took a very long time, and then everything after that has gone at warp speed.
Wow.
It's like life just sped up from that point on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Mark. It's more like training than education. He's got a video on that on navigating patterns. We know.
You can watch it on his YouTube channel.
Yes. That's all good.
Excuse me.
The
Do
people
you
at church.
study?
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what do you study at school?
Chemical engineering.
Ooh, wow,
Yeah,
that's fun.
He's going to find the propellant that takes us to Mars.
Yay! Catholicism on Mars.
I wish, man. I'll probably just work at an oil plant somewhere, kill a
Oh,
bunch of fish.
all
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
well, you could do that too.
I just got a new pair of tires this week in preparation for driving out to Washington, D.C.
Nice.
And I guess tires have just been on a continual improvement. So the nice man on the phone sold me all weather tires, which I guess have even better grip than all season tires. And he says I'm going to love it in the snow. And
Okay.
since we've got so much snow through the year, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So anyway, maybe you can design tires because I guess it's part of it is the materials that they're making out of. And the Coptic Orthodox
Yeah.
only ordains celibate engineers as bishops.
You're not gonna like this, Jacob, but when we choose the Pope, we only choose amongst monks. So, all your dreams of me becoming Pope are not gonna exactly become reality.
Did you say they only promote celibate engineers to bishop?
That's what Jacob said, and he's not Coptic Orthodox. So
Okay. Take it
I
with a
don't think
grain
we
of
should take
salt.
him too terribly seriously. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Sights and Sons Moving Company got 70% of my stuff moved over to the bishop's house yesterday. It's very
Yay.
efficient. Very efficient because my dad brought his pickup and my brother drove up from the Twin Cities for Mother's Day and he brought his pickup. So it was just one trip. Boom, 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 boom. We had it all taken care of. But now I got to get to the chiropractor to get adjusted. I don't think there was any serious injury. I just need something right back into place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting ready to bring out coffee and oatmeal to Chino. Figure that out.
That's great. Chino.
All righty.
The Chino
Bald versus
preparations
non-bald.
are going. So there's going to be no stream next week, right? Is it Chino?
Well, I mean, unless I'm like hanging out with Jacob and he's got his phone and he wants to stream, it'd be like 5:30 there. So it could, yeah.
We'll just have to
It
wait
could
and
happen.
see.
So yeah. Next week it'll be a hit or miss sort of thing, depending on the craziness. So this potentially could be the last one before the summer. So very sad.
That's what I was thinking. This might be the last stream.
Yeah, until August.
Until August. That's like super summer. Oh, because you're gonna be in Washington. You won't have time to do it all in Washington.
Yeah. I don't know if I have time. I'll have equipment, any of that. So
He's going to be in a castle with no electricity. That was the rumor earlier.
Yeah.
There's lots of castles in
That's
Washington
Andrew
D.C.
K.
Actually,
That's a rumor that I made.
There are.
It's true.
That is true. There are lots of castles. They have a nice church with flying buttresses, by the way, in DC.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
talking about the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception.
That might be it.
Is it
Probably.
a
I don't know,
really,
but they're-
really big one?
Yeah, you could be there.
I don't know. Nothing's big anymore. I've been to Edinburgh, and like that, they got some big churches in Scotland. Big church, big buildings.
You know,
castles
I've been to
and
St. Peter's Basilica, and they do have speakers painted like marble and automatic doors in the basement. So it is possible.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, if you go to Roslyn Chapel, they've got like a visitor center thing out side of the chapel, and it's all this modern glass and everything. You go back,
Oh
and you're like,
boy.
whoa! There's like a stone chapel. Like, what's going on?
Huh.
Yeah, but I've
Weird.
seen the mixture stuff. A lot of the churches aren't churches anymore, so they're mixed and they've been updated, and so yeah, they've got automatic doors and weird things, and you're like, this doesn't look right, because it's not ghastly enough.
What if you had an automatic stone door?
That sounds
That'd be
expensive. Okay, no flying buttresses. This is the National Shrine of
insanely
the Immaculate
expensive.
Conception. One of the
Yeah,
biggest
no, it's not that
Catholic
one.
churches. But there's no flying buttresses on that one, so I'll have to keep on looking.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Mhm.
Yeah. Andrew K., if you design buildings, they have to have flying buttresses. Otherwise,
They do.
No.
Yeah.
if it doesn't flying buttress support, you don't know. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
Churches, office buildings, residential needs flat
Everything.
everything.
everywhere.
Bungalows.
Yeah.
Skyscrapers.
Bungalows, outhouses, everything needs. That's-
I'll keep that
that's
in
my
mind.
stance. That's my professional architecture opinion, which might be why
That's going to be
hold on.
my concept.
Hold on.
Concept on
Mark,
my next project.
Mark, you're not talking about this one, are you?
Ooh. Is that an
I've got
outhouse?
bad
Oh
news.
no, that's a church.
That's a beautiful
Well, I've
one
got
too.
I've got bad news for you. It's Episcopalian.
Yeah, no, it's not that one. That's pretty.
Where's
though. I like that.
Episcopalian?
It's the National Cathedral.
They don't eat
Washington
fish.
National Cathedral.
How can Episcopalians have cathedrals? Is that legal?
Yeah, they've got bishops. I mean, I don't recognize them as bishops, and neither would Andrew, but they've got people they call bishops. So once you have a bishop, you can have a cathedral, because the cathedra is the seat where the bishop sits.
Hmm.
Right.
I don't know. We need better rules. We need much better rules. I was watching. I watched a series called Monarchy with David Starkey. It's a UK series on the monarchy. It's very compressed history, but it's very focused on the changes in monarchy, on the things that altered the monarchy in England. Fascinating, and you find out how devastating it was with Henry VIII and Protestantism coming along, and just basically England becomes a nightmare after that, like an absolute hellscape. It's like, whoa, this isn't good at all.
Yep, Henry VIII was a monster. Can confirm. So it happens when you destroy the social security of a country overnight. That took hundreds of years to build.
Yeah. Well, and also, at first he was, the Catholic Church were sticking with it. And then through these weird circumstances where they're just a few months too late, and then it all falls apart because he's like, no, I need to get a divorce, which he had grounds for. But yeah, it was just this weird set of circumstances that's just all these strange one-off events that shouldn't have happened all at once. And then bang, you get this explosion of catastrophe and fighting, and oh yeah, it's a total mess.
Wow.
But then of course, he being British, Starkey totally poo-poos the Stamp Act. He's like, oh, this is minor tax. It's like, no, it was not a minor tax. I don't know what math you use over there in the UK, buddy. But that ain't how it works.
They didn't use math in the UK. They use maths.
Maths, exactly. They have different arithmetic. They use maths instead of math.
They have multiple arithmetics over there.
Exactly.
It's all stacked up on each other. It's incompatible.
It's a good series though. I highly recommend. Just a really interesting narrow band view of one particular aspect of historical unfolding, and most of it's pretty good. But I mean, I think he goes nuts, and the very last episode is like bonkers to me. But
Yeah, I have heard the
they're all like that.
UK people use maths before, but
Because they're shortening mathematics,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
and so they say maths, whereas we want to drop that last S in America, and we do because it's America. Question for you,
America.
Andrew: what was going on with the precious blood of Jesus at communion? Did people get precious blood of Jesus in the back of the church, or only some people got to drink?
You probably didn't see it because you were in like the 4th row at the front, but they've got the communion cup like right in the middle of the aisle. So yeah, like it was probably behind you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing communion at a different church is always like, even different Catholic churches, because I'm a specialist. I'd be like, oh, this is how they're doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
But then you go to a different tradition entirely. It's like, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing?
Mhm.
Mhm.
As for the
Until you go to a low Protestant church and you're like, plastic?
yeah, you're not going to get over that trauma, are you? That was, I was like, what is going on here?
As long as it's understood that it's a very lowercase t trauma, yeah, I'm not getting over it.
As
I
for
don't know how
the
lowercase
bishop's
that
chair,
was.
Bishop's chair?
yeah,
You gonna say
Um,
something?
yeah, we're the first Coptic church in the U.S., so we kind of have to set the standard, right? So huge chair. It's got like an icon of Christ the Good Shepherd on it. Absolutely amazing, Yeah, and it's got a the bishop who like whatever raised the funding for the church and everything was, I think, ordained by Pope Kyrillos. Oh my gosh, who's like major figure in Coptic Orthodoxy. Friends with Nasser, if anyone's interested. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very
Mhm.
cool. So how many, and I don't know if I got the right words for this, so I'm just going to say the Latin word, dioceses
Mhm.
do the Coptics have in the United States?
I think it's like 4 or 5-ish.
Okay. So yours is kind of the West Coast.
Yeah, we're like California and southern US. We've got 1, 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this plastic thing. It just seems you
It's
can
like
pop up a
plastic.
church and have one anywhere. You just go down to the dollar store and get everything you need. It's like, are we at churching at this point, or are we, like, is this kayfabe? Is this LARP? What's going on here? I don't. How important is this really? If you can go down to the dollar store and get it done in 20 minutes, I don't know.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I bring a little kit with gold vessels on vacation.
In fact, he does. I can validate
Mark-
all of this.
Mark can
Yeah,
confirm that. Yeah.
and confirm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
quite
that
impressive.
like an emergency communion kit, or is that because you
No.
perform communion yourself?
So
Or
the current code of canon law says that a priest can celebrate mass away from a consecrated altar for a just cause. And if you know a little bit about canon law, and there's a reason why I'm getting sent to study it, you've got 3 levels of cause. You've got just, grave, and very grave. So just cause is the least amount of reason. So if I'm traveling and the church does encourage me to celebrate the Holy Eucharist every day as a priest,
Mhm.
and I think if I'm away from an altar because of my travels, that's just enough cause to celebrate Mass away from a consecrated altar.
Yeah, I've heard of other priests who do this. I've also heard of priests who don't. So that's always clarifying. Yeah.
I have a portable altar, but I am not putting that in the hands of the TSA or United baggage handlers because they shouldn't be expected to handle that.
Yeah.
But actually, I got a picture of it. I can show you. Picture of my portable altar.
Is it consecrated? How does that work?
I haven't gotten it done yet. I need to get a a decent altar or relic to mount in it.
Mm-hmm.
But once that happens, I can do that. Share screen, window, portable altar. Ah, snap! I hit cancel instead. That was not what I wanted to do. So that's my portable altar right there.
Oh wow. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
So it's got this altar stone there, and there's a place you might be able to see it on the stream. I'll see if I can zoom in. There's a place where I could mount a little relic in there, and then it would be a very consecrated altar.
Very
And
concentrated.
and then this is a little hatch that opens up, and I could store things in there, and the whole thing folds together and weighs like 30 pounds. So
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Portable.
yeah,
Cool.
this was an ordination gift from my parents.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
Right.
Is that
Father
you
Eric?
take that Tino with you so you can alter while you're there now?
Not putting that in the hands of the TSA.
Mm-hmm.
Not putting that in the hands of United baggage handlers. I just
Oh, you're flying down. That's right. I forgot.
yeah, it's a long ways to Chino, and I couldn't get anybody to carpool with me from Fargo.
Oh, really?
Father-
There were no other people from Fargo going to Chino. I'm shocked. Let me put on my shocked face here for a bit.
Yeah.
Are you from a big family?
I
Father Eric?
have 3 older brothers and 1 younger sister.
Oh, okay. Were you
You
the only
be the
one
judge.
to join holy orders, or
So far,
How
I have
old you-
3 brothers who are technically eligible because they're not married.
Oh, okay.
I don't really see any of them doing it. And my sister's getting married this summer, so
Oh, good.
I'm going to fly back from DC to do that wedding.
Oh, great.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, looking forward to that. So yeah, I don't know. Some people think big is 5. Other people think 5 is big. Other people think 5 is small. I'm not sure how to describe it.
I think it's at least a mid-size. I don't think anyone.
It's a nice mid-size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to say it's
I guess-
small. Yeah.
Maybe you could go by like the maximum number of children that people can have. That's a big family. So maybe like double digits.
I mean, are we talking just like a traditional family?
I think 8 is big. I mean, come on, because you're way above the average of 1.5. So
Yeah. I think it's if you have to start, if your car purchase has to be, if you do something larger than a sedan because of the size of your family, something more than 5 seats, then you're at least a mid-sized family. You can't say your small family. A small family fits in a standard vehicle.
Small family standard vehicle, mid-size family mid-size vehicle, large family 12-seater.
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually not a bad way to
bus.
categorize it. Yeah. When the homeschooler van shows up, you know you're having a good time.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So thank you for recommending those. Is it what was it? Is it
Aquinas
it's not Aquinas
101?
101? Yeah, the Aquinas 101 videos. Yeah.
Yeah, no, those are super good. It's like 7 minutes and boom, you learn something.
Problem of Evil. Yeah, it was 8 minutes. Oh, bam. Yeah. And last one I think I watched was on the the soul and the body, the relationship between the soul and the body, which I think is sort of very topical these days.
Mhm. What with like AI or
well, that too, but I was thinking
transgenderism? Or people
transgenderism because
spending
that's
too much time on their phones. Or
well, the
Consciousness?
transgenderism thinking was where I was that one as well. But the transgenderism, I mean, in Canada, it's very topical because now we have this this Bill C4 that passed, so it's effectively enshrined that you can't have into law that you can't have anything. You can't coerce or even recommend that anyone be heterosexual or the sex they were assigned at birth. as it's considered conversion therapy, and it's
Why I don't like thinking about Canada is because every time I look up there, there's another piece of horrible news like that.
yeah. But I was thinking that it enshrines into the law this Gnostic outlook, right? That you could be born into the wrong body, right?
Well,
Well,
it
that's the
makes
bad
it
God
makes
doing that, Xander.
it
To
makes
be
your
fair, it's the bad God. And then
Well,
if
that's
you
why I
have
said
good
that's why I said
knowledge, you can
Gnostic,
get the
right?
good God who will tell you
It
that
implies a
the bad God
demiurge
did a bad. It's
because God's not going to make mistakes like that.
It's perfectly Gnostic.
Yeah.
You're right. It's
Yeah.
dead on. That's the best way to describe it. It's as Gnostic can be.
Yeah, and that's what they're pushing as science these days, right? And
which is
yeah,
really
sorry.
interesting because you're talking about Aquinas 101. And
Yeah.
since Thomas Aquinas is one of the sponsors of the show, I've got to go off on it a little bit.
There you
Is
go.
that if you look at good Thomistic hylomorphism, that just means soul and body together when you're talking about human beings,
Mhm.
is that your sex assigned at birth is actually an accidental quality of being.
Mhm.
Because it has to be that way, because otherwise you would have two species of human beings, men and women.
Wait, that doesn't
There's
mean it's a mistake, though.
right. So it's like, but then you think, okay, hold on, accidental quality of being. But just because something is not essential to human nature as such, doesn't mean that it's not essential to you.
Yeah.
Right. Being
Right.
born in 1992 is a really big deal for me personally,
Mhm.
but it is not an essential quality of a human being, right? So because that they're locating it in the soul, and all human souls are the same. It's the structural functional organization of a human person that is common to us all. Whereas your body is what differentiates you from other people, right? Because if you had the same body, you would be the same person. So basically, the fact that they're locating gender in the soul is a point where they're not agreeing with Aquinas, and that's why they're going way the heck off the rails.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and they're going farther than that. As I said, they're explicitly saying that you can be born in the wrong body. So by implication, they're saying that God makes mistakes, or
Wait,
and like
they're saying
or mistakes can happen in the ensouling process, right?
They're saying you were born in the wrong body. If they're
Yeah,
saying
you were,
can't
yeah.
confirm the birth chart.
Well, if
they're
it's
saying you are already a mistake. It's like, oh, great winning message.
yeah.
I find it fascinating also that they think that just telling somebody that maybe that's not okay is therapy. I imagine telling people like that anything is wrong is therapy.
Well, that's because of the loose language of the law that they passed. I can't really say bill, and it's
I'm sure that was
intentionally
just an accident.
Yeah, it was intentional.
Yeah.
It's intentionally very vague and loose language,
Yeah.
but it's very explicitly only goes one way. They said like heterosexual, making someone heterosexual or making someone or uh, trying to promote
So
someone
even
to
if
be
somebody
recognize
wanted
themselves as a
that
son of birth.
therapy, it would be illegal.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
like an adult consenting. Yeah. All
Right,
right,
it's weird.
I want to address Sandy here. So you can think of the soul. One of the things that the soul does is it is the essence that makes you to be the sort of thing that you are, right? So we've got different essences around the world, and we would say that we could recognize the function of something by its essence, or the essence provides the function for something. So the tree has its essence, the squirrel has its essence, the dog has its essence, and the human being has its essence, which provides the limitations as to what kind of thing that you are. And since we're all the same kind of thing, we're all human beings, that means that our souls are actually identical. And what makes us different from each other is which body that we are embodied in and those properties right there.
Okay. They
Didn't actually know that.
they had a heavy emphasis on the relationship with form in the soul.
Yeah.
in the Aquinas video. So they're talking about how the soul is what forms the body, or
But it forms it into a human body, but
Yeah.
like the body has its own reality to it that has like a feedback on the soul, right?
mhm.
So the soul
So-
doesn't make the body like male or female or black or white or whatever.
Right, right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the fact that people think that they have a gendered soul is a place where they go wrong.
And then if we die and go to purgatory and don't have our bodies, are we all the same?
Yeah. So according to Aristotle, and this is where we get a lot of this language and a lot of these tools from. Aristotle wasn't sure if the soul survived the death of the body.
Right.
Like he kind of thought of it as an unsolvable. There's just a little thing in there where he's like, maybe, I don't know, I can't prove it. I'm not going to speculate on it. So so the that actually, when Aquinas is importing a lot of this Aristotelian tools and languages into a system, it makes that makes a problem for him, because it's like, oh, Christianity's pretty serious about this immortality of the soul, and he's able to handle it somewhat, but there's a reason why the doctrine of the resurrection of the body is important, because you're not properly fully human until you've got a body linked with that soul. It's a sort of soul that needs a body in order to be able to behave and act properly. So Aquinas says that it's actually an aberration. It's kind of unnatural that death separates the soul from the body, and that these souls spend this time away from their bodies, and that's only going to be corrected at the last resurrection. Yes, God did form the soul and the body together but the body is provided by the parents, right? And God puts the soul into it.
Okay. So you get
Oh.
your body. I this is something I missed probably in my catechism. So you actually get your body back in heaven,
Well,
or a body
maybe.
back.
Yeah.
Or is it the new heavens and the new earth, which is referenced both in the book of the prophet Isaiah, the second letter of St. Peter, and the book of Revelation? Like, it specifically says new heavens and new earth.
Mhm.
I think there's going to be us walking around Chronicles of Narnia, the last battle style. I don't know. That's what the
that's
Bible
cool.
seems to be
Running up the
indicating.
waterfalls.
Running up the waterfalls, baby. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
Wait, were you asking if you get like the kind of body that's like the one you had on Earth, or were you asking if you just get any body? Like, are you asking if we get resurrected at all?
Well, it sounds. I mean, I know well, I just sort of didn't envision it with the like the separation of the soul and the body. I didn't really consider that like in heaven that we would have like a physical. I didn't think, honestly. I haven't thought too much about heaven because it sort of breaks my brain.
It is
It's
kind of
harder
like
than
brain
calculus.
Because Jesus is like I can feel you here. I can follow you here, and there's a good place you're sending me to, but I don't really fully grasp what that means. But I trust you, so I'm not gonna.
And I want to touch on Bubblvis. I have no idea how to say her name. I'm going to go with Bubblvis because that's a little easier to say. So I'll touch on your point here. So it's like all souls are identical, kind of in the abstract, but after you've lived on Earth and after this soul has become real, really incarnated in this body, uh, because like the memory is a faculty of the soul, and so what you remember, it's like it changes you along the way, and so it's they're not all identical after the fact of embodiment, but as an abstract principle they're all identical. So we all have the same faculties of the soul. For instance, we all have intellect, will, the appetites, the senses, the vegetable powers, and then whatever physical forces are common to all material things built into us.
It's a form like a triangle, right? There's one perfect form triangle, and then every instantiation of a triangle is a memory or something of that triangle that is not the same because it can't be a perfect triangle because it's not in the realm of forms. It's the same with the soul. Problem solved.
Yeah.
It's really Plato makes it all easy. It just solves all these problems.
Yeah. And I
Wait,
do have
so-
good news for Matt Moore. He can still be a soul man.
Before
That's
we
fine.
move on,
That was a big question.
Mhm.
what are vegetable powers?
Reproduction, homeostasis, integrating nutrition, and expelling waste.
That's called vegetable power?
Yes, it is. Gotta love the vegetative soul. You gotta love the old school language there.
All right. Wow. Interesting. So would it be silly to I don't know, I guess if every human soul is the same, would it be like silly to think of oneself as having an advantage over somebody else in some way?
Well, so we're gonna get really metaphysical here, right?
So,
So
there's
like
no hierarchy of souls, actually. Like, yeah. Go
there
on.
is a
Well, there's no
there isn't a
hierarchy of angels
souls,
either, is there?
right? You could think of God, if you like, as like pure, unrestrained existence. Right? That's what it means to be infinite, right? So like everything, everywhere, all at once, power, divinity. And then when you try and think about it, you've got the words in the right order, maybe, but you don't have a proper concept that is proportionate to that, right? And when God creates, what he has to do is he has to put boundaries on that, right? He's got to put limits on that pure existence. And so that's what an essence is, right? You've got this pure existence, and then you limit it, right? You limit it to this or that sort of thing. And so when you talk about like the human form, the human soul, that puts a certain constraint on it, that puts a certain limit on it. And then we are further limited by our bodies, right? So it's not just the perfect ideal form of humanity, but it's 6 feet tall, male pattern baldness, brown beard, in a certain time and
Priest.
location there.
Thanks, yeah.
Yeah, priest. So yeah, there's no hierarchy to souls, but your body may be more or less perfectly conformed and receptive to the ideal man.
Okay, but there is,
Huh.
but there, well, I was sort of surprised that Andrew said there's no hierarchy of angels, but there's clearly a hierarchy of angels, right?
Well, there's
No,
definitely
there
a
is, but
hierarchy
there
of
isn't.
angels. There's definitely a hierarchy of angels because
Right.
angels
Yeah.
aren't human beings. They're just a pure intellectual form. They don't have bodies. And so every angel is its own species, it's its own essence
Mhm.
because they don't
Yeah.
have bodies to differentiate themselves.
And there's a hierarchy of saints as well, right? Like there's going to be
Yes.
different stations in heaven. Not everyone
But-
gets to be at the right hand
but
of
that's-
God, right?
But that's not a function of your soul. That's
No.
a function of like your whole life together.
Mhm.
Well, what
no,
I've heard is that angels all have the same capabilities, but due to their kind of assignment by God, that's where they get their hierarchy.
sure. Yeah. And their assignment from God, like that's what they're created to do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like the angel of strong nuclear force does nothing but strong nuclear force.
Oh, that's an angel?
I don't know. I'm imagining
For
there
example.
would be, I would imagine like all of the fundamental forces of physics would get their own angel who's responsible for them. And then
That'd be
one of
pretty
them is
cool.
fallen. So that's why quantum mechanics has all this wonky math.
Yeah, that must be it.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Brad.
So can actually,
So,
I've, okay. Go with
you-
this question, and I'll
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
mine after.
Can we experience our soul? We can only experience things through the senses, right? So I don't know how you would sensibly experience the intellectual pattern of your being. That doesn't. I don't know. I don't know how to make sense of that question.
That sounds dangerous.
Does existence precede essence? They come together. Existence and essence are concomitant. They come together. You can't just have pure unformed existence, because that would either be God, because it's infinite, or it would be nothing. Right? Otherwise, existence and essence always come together. Are our souls fallen? I'm going to give you Thomas Aquinas' answer. So we were supposed to be created with a perfect integrity of body and soul, and that this integrity was going to make our souls perfectly obedient to our bodies. So if eating kale was the appropriate thing for your health and well-being, then kale would taste delicious to you, because it would be rational for kale to taste delicious, and your body would respond to that reason there. So vegetables would taste like candy. But that was not an essential part of human nature. That was a gift given to us by God, called by the scholastics the preternatural gifts. And on account of our sin, that gift was taken away, the gift of integrity. So I don't think it's appropriate to talk about our souls themselves as fallen, but the whole nature having been fallen.
Wait, so the soul was obedient to the body?
No. The body was obedient to the soul, flowing down. Yes, our soul
to the
hid in
intellect.
Christ. I think it is now.
Yeah.
Christ reveals to us what perfect humanity is supposed to be. The limbo of the fathers. That's what Abraham's bosom is. The place where the souls of the just were awaiting Christ's resurrection.
So my question is about guardian angels, which are my question about guardian angels is can guardian angels be fallen, or have they ever fallen, or how does that work?
So a few things about angels. The first point is that angels were kind of constituted at the very beginning in a position where they were going to either choose to obey or disobey. And so all of the good angels obeyed, and all of the evil angels disobeyed. And because of I'd have to read this again, but because of the way a pure intellectual form is, right? Like it's a purely immaterial being. They don't have the capacity to change their minds. They don't have the capacity for repentance, right? And they would have had knowledge given to them at the very moment what the consequences of their actions would be. And some of them still chose to rebel eternally.
That sounds pretty foolish.
And so I suppose some of the angels who were supposed to be guardian angels, they could have rebelled at the very moment of their creation. But
then they'd be replaced.
I suppose so. Like that function has to get filled somehow. And at a certain point, we have to have a level of agnosticism about this, where we can say certain things from Revelation, we can say certain things from good theology, but how many angels are there? Can't count them. They don't line up. They don't. There. All righty. Who knows more about my soul? Father Eric, Aquinas, or me? Aquinas, definitely Aquinas. The telos of your soul is to love God, to know God, to love God, and to serve Him in this life, and be happy with Him forever in the next. The fallen angels are miserable forever.
Yeah. Don't be a fallen angel.
Don't fall. Go to confession.
Don't fall.
No. God.
Maybe
if you do fall, go to confession.
Don't fall. I'll try.
Yeah. Those are some good questions. I haven't been able to exercise some of the Aquinas muscles in a while, so it's
Yes, that was very good questions.
yes. God bless the people over at Grail Country. God bless them. We all need blessings. We all need prayers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I saw how is it? I always get the priests with long funny names wrong. Is it Rippenberger or Rapsenberger?
Ripperger.
Ripperger. Yeah, Father Ripperger. Talk about how guardian angels at their well, at their formation they when they choose us as their charge or and they fall their love is for us is such as that then they choose their form, they choose to look like the thing which they love most, which is us. So our guardian angels look like the ideal versions of ourselves, sort of like super
That sounds horrifying.
I immediately thought of like super creepy fans or something, right? Like this parasocial relationship we have with your guardian angel.
I'd be interested in looking at his sources there.
Yeah, but
because I don't think he would come up with that himself. I mean, I respect him enough. You know, he's kind of traditional, right? So I don't think he would just start making things up.
It passes the Bugs Bunny and Tom and Jerry cartoon test, right? Because like whenever the angels appeared on the shoulder, they would look like a small version of themselves, right?
On this rests on the authority of Looney Tunes.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good source right there. There's the cultural tradition of the West embodied in the modern art for sure.
I think maybe hell would be seeing an ideal version of myself.
Actually, one of the things that stuck with me is like Toby Lucan, who's the founder of Shopify, the CEO and founder of Shopify. I remember in an interview, he said that that hell is meeting the person you could have been when you die. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you actually meet the ultimate playthrough. So all the mistakes and all the failures in your life have been revealed. So you just by meeting what you could have done and who you could have been.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh yeah. And it sort of like it struck me that afterwards I heard the guardian angel thing, and I was like, oh, okay, so that actually does happen.
Yeah. And,
backward.
If you could send that Ripperger video to me, I'd be very interested to hear him talk about it.
Okay, I'll see if I can find it again.
See if he cites his sources there. This is stuff he's extracted out of demons during an exorcism.
Yeah.
You're talking about Father Ripperger, huh?
Yeah, Ripperger, however you say it.
Amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. My thought is like if I go to heaven and I somehow get the knowledge that I could have been a better saint, that would actually just be hell forever.
God's grace makes up for your weaknesses.
Yeah,
right straight with crooked lines.
Oh, absolutely.
The time to worry about judgment is while you're alive. Like that's what's so backwards to me. It's like I'm going to worry about judgment when I'm dead and I'm in the perfect me. What? No, like that was preordained. It's like that. No, that's not how anything could possibly ever work. But it sounds like Aquinas is pretty is making corrections for the absurdity of the modern philosophical tradition, which Manuel and I did a video on recently, because it's like the more you learn about these modern philosophers, the more it's like, oh look, it's psychological projection upwards to the culture, and then they solve the problem there as a way of exercising their own personal demons. You know, like Kierkegaard turns out to be nothing more than the Luther of Lutheranism, which to me is just freaking hysterical. I'm like, really? That's his whole deal? That is his whole deal. It's the whole thing. You don't need to know anything more about him. You need to read a line. You can just say, oh, he was just doing what Luther did to the Catholic Church, but he was doing it to the Lutheran Church in the ultimate irony of life. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's crazy.
Nice.
Gentlemen, I got to take a quick pit stop, but keep the
Okay.
show going. Mark, don't let any trolls on.
I won't. I won't. Don't worry. Ed, how's it
I'm
going?
here.
Oh,
Good to see you, my friend.
Oh, it is, man. It is good. It is. Yeah. It's been a wild ride. I had a ton of work this last week and a half or so. It was enjoyable work. It's just amazing. The world is very mutable, and especially when you have large hydraulic equipment. And so I spent part of the early part of this week with a 3-foot wide bucket balancing like 11-foot wide rocks on. I mean, it's like really amazing what you could do. You want to talk about like a study in creative limitation. It's like, all right, so I've got 4 articulating joints on this machine, and I've got to get this giant slab of sandstone out of a pond I'm digging. And you're like, turns out you can do it. Like if you kind of know where the center of gravity of this thing is. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. A lot of long, like dawn to dusk days. But so I haven't, I spent a lot of time listening to, it's funny you're talking about Father Ripper. I was actually listening to some lectures on, I don't know, Xander, if this is where you came across them, but on Sensus Fidelium on,
okay.
yeah, but this guy named Dr. What was his name? Dr. Fagerberg on asceticism. He's like a retired professor from Notre Dame, I think in Illinois. And he's got like 5 or 6 talks on there on asceticism that were just like, dude, I don't usually re-listen to stuff. And I was like, when you're like, you hit someone and you're like, you feel like you hit that vein of gold in the rock when you're like mining for stuff. And you're like, dude, bust out the power drill right now. Like we got some good stuff coming down the line. I mean, yeah. So one of them that's just like straight up fun was C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia as a way of talking about Christian asceticism, which I thought was just like really, really good. I think most of these he like got connected on this book on liturgical asceticism.
Okay.
And so he's like, I know about other stuff besides asceticism, but like this is kind of where I ended up talking about. But
So what is it? What is asceticism in?
So asceticism, it's training. So it's spiritual training. Like ascesis is the process of spiritual training. And like, I mean, he's great. He's like I looked up a little bit about him. He's taught for years and years and years. He mostly taught literature in a Catholic university. So like, he's as fun as like you would imagine a very like thoughtful lit professor would be. And so he's like, Christianity without asceticism is like a pancake without flour. You can put the eggs and the milk in, and it's not a pancake.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he talks about it in terms of like, I mean, it's just really like he's pulling a lot from the Desert Fathers and talking about like asceticism is the process of digging the channels in your life so that when it rains, it rains grace, like there's something for that to flow into. You can't force God's grace into your life, but like you can prepare yourself to like be more of a vessel for it. And so, yeah, and just like broadening asceticism out, he's got some really, Father Eric, I think you'd really like his discussion on liturgy as it relates to that. It's kind of a clickbaity title. It's like, is your definition of liturgy big enough? But basically he ends up talking about liturgy as the process by which the inner life of the Trinity is extended out into the created universe through participation in the sacrifice of the Son. It's like, okay, yeah, this is some good stuff here.
So,
what was that? Hey, Father, you're muted. I don't know what.
Who are we talking about?
This is a professor I came across named Dr. Fagerberg. He's a retired lit professor from Notre Dame University. He's written some books. One of them's on liturgical asceticism, which is on my like top to buy list at this point. Yeah, he's one of those people where you start to see like, okay, this guy's like is this the only way you could talk about these things? Of course not. Is the way that he's talking extremely useful for integrating a bunch of stuff? So like, as he's talking about liturgy, I had this thing where like Daniel Toma, who, speaking of Aquinas, is like the first Thomistic thinker I'd ever come across. He's a modern microbiologist up in Minnesota. And he's got all this stuff at the end about creation is being patterned after the liturgy of the church. And so I've got all this stuff over here, and then I've got Fagerberg talking about asceticism over here, and all of a sudden this like beam connects between the two, and these two enormous like clouds of thought go like, oh, and now we've locked everything in together. I mean, it was like, oh, it was great. It was just, yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah. Check out that beard, the glasses.
Oh, and he's got like such a great voice. Yeah. His voice is just not what you would expect at all. It's just
But he's
really fun.
he's at Notre Dame, huh? He's a
That's
part of
what
the
he's-
he's a part of the actually Catholic enclave there.
Actually Catholic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just really ate up a lot of that stuff. He's got some really fun stuff in those lectures too. If you can get past the hilarious rad trad intro to the Sensus Fidelium podcast, which is legitimately hilarious. I mean, they like pulled something from apparently Terminator 4 where Christian Bale's giving this like gravelly, like, you are the resistance overload, thing with like dramatic drums in the background. And then it's like, Dr. Fagerberg, and I'd like to talk to you about C.S. Lewis and Asceticism. It's like,
These things don't go together.
No, they go together like hot sauce and milk.
Ooh, delicious.
So yeah, the whole idea of ascesis, of asceticism in general, just like trying to, recapture a lot of what's going on there and saying, this isn't a denial that the world is, you're not saying the world is bad. You're not saying that people are bad. In fact, like, it seems like a, legitimately proper understanding of asceticism as actually able to declare creation and man to be way better than you can with this sort of like rule of the self autonomy thing. It's like, no, there's actually people, and people through creation, through our bodies, have the capacity to integrate with that which is totally transcendent. It's like, okay, I'll buy that.
Mhm.
So
Okay. So
yeah. What you
Wikipedia
got,
is sort of
Xander?
describing asceticism differently. Like they're saying it's the characterized by that abstinence of sensual pleasure. Often, because I've heard
part of
that
it.
yeah, because I've heard of
Yeah.
that
That's
more
the
of
common
the definition.
definition.
Yeah, that's what asceticism. If you look at the tradition, it kind of starts there, right? You've got the Desert Fathers picked up all the way through the spiritual classics. You've got the way of the beginners, the way of the proficient, and the way of the perfect. And a lot of that, the way of beginners, is you're still being moved by God's grace. You're still being lifted up by Him, but you feel like you're doing more of the work. That you're doing the fasting. That you're doing the time in prayer. That you're denying yourself. You're holding back your passions. You're doing that kind of training there. And the way of the beginner is characterized by God giving you a lot of encouragement through that. You're getting the consolation. You show up to prayer, and the prayer is just joyful. You're going about the fasts, and like you don't even feel like you're fasting there, and that digs the channels, as Ted was pointing out. That opens up the soul to make it more disposed to receive God's grace, and then you get to the dark night of the senses, where God begins to purify your love. Because if you were stayed in that state forever, you would have the temptation to just be there for the good feelings that you're receiving from the Lord. And so the Lord begins to withdraw His presence in that form away from you to bring you into the way of the proficient. So,
Okay.
Yep.
certainly that, but the ascetical life goes all the way through the way of the perfect, the dark night of the soul, these things that I don't feel qualified to talk about, so I'm not going any farther than that. But the way of
Soon.
asceticism goes all the way through there, and the higher levels of prayer. And if you want to know more about that, you can read Saint Teresa of Avila,
Okay.
Interior Castle, or you could read some works by Father Garrigou Lagrange, who integrated the works of the Carmelite mystics with Thomism in the 20th century and all of that.
So, but is asceticism then a part of mainstream Catholic formation, or is it?
Yeah, asceticism is for everybody, but
Okay.
not everybody's asceticism is going to look the same. So it would be unfitting for a diocesan priest to do long vigils and harsh fasts.
For
But it would be
everybody.
quite fitting for a monk to do those things. But I'm asked to participate in the governance of the church. You're supposed to have a decent night's sleep when you're doing that,
Mhm.
and not be half starving to death. It doesn't mean I shouldn't ever do a vigil or I shouldn't
Mhm.
ever fast, but the
Mhm.
way that that's going to be expressed. And frankly, in married life, there is quite a bit of asceticism in there if you're going to make it work.
Mhm.
But the children draw it out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it
Yes.
is related to beauty in most cases. And the problem is people want a objective material version of beauty, right? And they're like, oh, it's something we can all point, because there are things you can point to as beautiful and common. It's just that there's no objective independent standard. And so, aestheticism is the same thing. Like, what does that mean? Oh, because we confuse it with the church fathers. Oh, the church fathers were the first aesthetics, and therefore you have to live in the desert starving like a monk. It's like, no, you just kind of missed it, right? You're too materialistic about it and didn't really catch the formation part and the opening as a vessel. And it's an easy confusion to make, especially in modern times where we're looking for things, right? We're looking at things and saying, how do we classify this such that we can participate? And it's like, no, it's what's the quality of the participation. It's not the classification.
Does our conscience need formation? Because I think that,
Doesn't everything?
You mean like your little Jiminy Cricket that tells you right from wrong?
yeah.
Absolutely, it needs formation.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
Aquinas says that the natural law is imprinted on our souls, meaning that if we are educated properly, it fits into us really well.
Mhm.
And so, unless somebody's quite deformed, spiritually speaking, um, it should go well, and that's why we have noble pagans and those sorts of things, that they
Yeah.
can recognize the true and the good, even though they don't have light of revelation.
That's
Okay.
sort of Lewis's argument in The Abolition of Man, where he's got that huge appendix on what he calls the Tao, right? It's essentially that. It's here's natural conscience developed throughout all these civilizations. Look, it's incredibly consistent across all of them. You might disagree on what exactly marriage looks like, but marriage is a thing. Murder is a thing, regardless. We're kind of regardless of where murder lies. Like, we've got these basic categories that you live in. Pretty much everyone everywhere understood that you have to rule yourself in some way. You can't be ruled by your desires, or your flesh. But Xander, I was going to go back and, like, from what I've understood, the sort of the three basic components of asceticism, particularly in Christianity, are yes, fasting, because fasting is really important, but then prayer and almsgiving.
Mhm.
And so it's the
Yeah.
practice of
The big three in Lent.
Yeah, so I mean that's it, right? Lent is a period where we're all very consciously engaged in asceticism. Here it is, we're doing the whole thing together, and it's like, ideally, I mean, I don't know, Father. It seems like besides, I mean, obviously there's the act that it's a penitential season, but it also seems like this thing of sort of like jump starting these spiritual practices in your life that should spin out in some way for the rest of the year. Like, maybe you
Yeah.
can't keep running exactly that way for the rest of the outside of that 40-day period, but like, hey, you found like I mean, this is what I found too with going on. I went on a two-day walking pilgrimage last fall, and I just, like, you start dislodging this stuff. You push yourself really, really hard, and you find out, hey, dude, I could crank it up another 60% in my life, the rest of my life, really easily, because I did 400% of what I thought I could.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't know, Xander. There's a bunch of
That's why
stuff
it happens during spring.
Mhm.
Yeah.
God planned the liturgical calendar around our human realities, unless you live in Australia.
What Pageau says, Pageau's
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, I mean, he's like, it's the bottom of the world. Everything's backwards there. Look at the platypus, dude. It's like the edge of the map.
All of God's.
Oh yeah, they have winter right now, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that in a Q&A, someone was asking about how the liturgical year fits into the Southern Hemisphere in Australia. He's like, it's literally the bottom of the world. He's like, everything is weird there.
It's like a dev playground that he just put on the side of the planet.
People somehow
Like,
found access to.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyways,
It's
I was
good
only
contrast,
expecting a
too.
few marsupials, and I threw all the other ones down here because they're just too weird.
The thing about Lent and aestheticism is it's good contrast too for what you food. It's getting rid of the materials so that you can enjoy it more later, right? And things like that. Like it's all that contrast that helps you to be a better person in that formation.
Well, there's a Mark, exactly at that point, there's a saying that the Dominicans have, which is that it is as sinful to fast on a feast day as it is to feast on a fast day.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. You don't want to
that-
do it all the time. Yeah.
yeah, like there's some real truth to that in terms of, the ascetical practices, where it's like, especially as a layperson, like you're also ordering your desire to, like, say, using food to celebrate, not just not eating or eating less to regulate your passions and to strengthen your will so that you can be ordered after the divine logos. Great. But also, like,
Right.
you're going to find out that reality is good and that, like, your body will be resurrected and you're going to just bring everything to bear. That's a quote from the Talmud.
Actually, this is
That's
Dominicans
fantastic.
been copying notes from the Talmud.
I'm
actually
not.
this is
that
a
surprised.
dilemma I've had,
Imagine that.
Father Eric, that I've been trying to fast on Fridays. I've been sort of I think as supportive as a lay associate of the Companions of the Cross, that sort of like they have like a vow that you sort of honor
Mhm.
Friday fasting. But I've noticed that a lot of the local Catholic events, for like, if they have a gala for the support
It's
for life
very
movement or
sad.
something, they'll always have these dinners on Friday evenings, these charity
Mhm.
dinners on Friday evenings.
Mm.
And then you sort of feel
It's
like you want
very
to come.
sad. It's very sad. It's a disgrace. Everybody knows that it's a disgrace. Everybody knows that Friday is the day that our Lord suffered on the cross, and that we are called to suffer with him unless there is a feast day overriding that. And so it's very sad. I'm going to put a stop to it. I'm going to make sure that this never happens again. And that's as
Thanks,
much as I
Father.
got. Yeah.
If
But
Donald Trump was Catholic.
So what do you? So in that situation, though, should you still be honoring the fast? Like, I
Flip
feel like
the
a dick if I go
tables.
to the dinner and
Flip
then
the tables.
flip the
Put the
table.
food on the ground.
Yeah. Flip the
Oh
table.
no.
Yes.
Make a
I mean,
scene.
Xander, that's like a real. So,
You
I'm willing
already
to
know
go,
what
like,
a trouble I am for my parish priests.
like that's like a legitimately hard question to work through, and
Yeah.
and I would say especially with like children and looking at the liturgy and the way that we have to make decisions, especially as parents, all the time, because it's like there are certain things in like even with like really wonderful local diocesan priests from like my children, I can't explain on a theological level why that's not good, that's not healthy. And so you end up just like having to say, like, are we more concerned about like the social element of this, or are we more concerned about like forming our souls after the divine reality? And it's like, we're going to go to the place where like the Eucharist is never on anyone's hands except the priests. And it's like, because our kids, we just want them to know that like, this is Christ's body. Here it is. So those are hard to do. Those are tough questions. And you kind of just got to take them one at a time and just be like, man, what's the priorities here?
Yeah, my daughter actually started receiving communion on the tongue. Yes, kneeling and receiving communion on the tongue without my prompting, but just following me, I guess. Which was pretty big, because it's like like pretty much everyone else in the congregations we go to receives on the hand. So, especially for a preteen girl, that's a pretty powerful step out of the crowd statement there. So I was proud of her.
Yeah. Man, there's nothing like seeing your kids pick up on, those patterns that you're showing and they just see it. And it's amazing, and it's like, I think that was one of the biggest things in coming into the Catholic Church for us when we started doing that, is seeing like what our children were doing without teaching them. And, our kids aren't that old. And so there's like, you get these ideas of like kids need to be shunted off there. They can't figure out how to be still, whatever. And realizing like, just like the degree of like physical reverence that like a 3-year-old is capable of. No, totally not perfect. You still got to pick them up and take them out. Like stuff like that happens all the time. But like just getting things pointing in the right direction and knowing what those priorities are. I mean, it just like, it bears fruit
Mhm.
way
Well,
on down the road.
that gives them the ability to do it later. That was always the thing that bothered
Yes.
Protestant churches was the kids
Yeah.
just all over the place all the time, and I was like, why?
Mhm.
And then you go to the Orthodox church, and they're way better behaved.
Wait, what do they do all the time in Protestant churches?
They're just
Running around.
they're unconstrained little hellions.
Oh,
Yeah, no.
yeah.
In the French churches I went to back in the day, the kids did not move, and if they did anything wrong, they got smacked right then and there. And if they acted out, they got taken out immediately, gone, no disruption to the service whatsoever. Yeah, the at least the French Canadian Catholics of my youth were very big on not disrupting the service, and the kids would usually be fine. You know, to Ted's point, not all the time and not forever and not everyone, right? But it would, but that trains you to do that later in life. Like you just leave
Yeah.
your kids unconstrained, that they're just going to be hellions forever. And it turns out now we've done that experiment and proven that out, unfortunately.
Mark, that's like family level asceticism right there. Honestly,
exactly.
That's what I was about to ask you to bring it back to the asceticism.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's a form of asceticism. Saying
and
like
Christian formation too, right?
Mhm.
And actually, something I've observed is, even though I know a lot of engineers have like they don't have fallen out of the faith in life, but I'm always struck by how many of the people who are very talented had a religious upbringing, right? Or and I think that part of it is they pick up that discipline, right? To that there's the asceticism from their youth, right? The being able to sit there quietly in mass,
right,
serves them later on in life.
It might be why they're good.
Well, I have a question about that. So, like in Canada, wasn't the Canada almost like the Second Vatican at one point? And I wonder why it's not anymore. And I wonder if that has something to do with it smacking your kid when they're moving around.
It's it was either Montreal or Quebec City. Actually, I think it's Quebec City was the city of churches. There were the Vatican was sort of determined that would be the Second Vatican in North America.
Yeah,
and they put huge investments into building these massive churches and a physical presence both in Montreal and Quebec City.
Right,
Chad. I mean, man, that's like a really tough question too. And like, I mean, to add to that, so I've got relatives from Southern Germany, and when I was in college, we went and spent some time there, like where my dad spent summers growing up. And I mean, I also went there after being in South America, and so it's like the contrast, like literally like one night back in the States. So the contrast was really wild in terms of like we have this perfectly physically ordered society, basically. Like Jacob, I don't know if that's a cat tower in the background, but they had like cat towers. They had like cat doors on the second floor with cat balconies with cat staircases on the outside. These like alpine houses in Bavaria, and you're like, when you're at the point of adding a second floor cat door, like you've solved most of the like infrastructure problems in your country. But like,
so are there flying buttresses on the cat structures?
No. And then they also
invalid.
you go to like Regensburg, and it's like heartbreakingly beautiful, and like you go in the Regensburg Cathedral, and it's like, you know, on and on and on, and like, but like that society as a whole has basically just walked away from faith. And like that's the same question, I think, Chad, to your point, where it's like, well, we had this world where, you know, like in Canada where everyone's Catholic, and then in like one generation, it's like, I don't have a good answer to that, and I think it's a fantastic question. Like, how do we do that? How did we do that?
I wonder. Sometimes I think I've had my run-ins with rigidity and trying to manage people, and I can only imagine what it'd be like to be in a place where you're considered the Second Vatican, and you take you take this thing seriously, but maybe a little too seriously to the point where it spills over into disciplinary actions that don't match up with what you're trying to teach, and people leave. Why would they stay? You know, if you're hitting your kids, if I'm a kid and I'm growing up in a church and I get smacked because I'm crying and I'm a 3-year-old, do you think I'm going to stay there? Probably not.
Well,
It's just
is that more to do with the church or the parents at that
Well,
point?
as a 3-year-old, I think I will
Yeah.
see it as both.
Hmm.
Yeah, but,
Yeah,
but
I
if
think
you
what-
remove the church, it's not going to change. Like this is the problem. Everybody's locating the actions of people outside of people, and it just turns out people
Yeah.
are the only agents. And so when you
Well,
do
when
that,
you're a
you just make
kid,
mistake. You're making
when you're okay, so when I was a kid, I was going to church, and I remember I went to church very briefly when I was about 12 years old. My dad started taking me to a church. It was a mega in San Jose. It was. I remember I liked it, but when I would go home, and the second we would leave that parking lot, my dad was not acting like what was going on in that church. And I as a kid, I can feel things, right? And so and then I carry that around and now I just built myself a structure that is not a healthy one, but that's what I do. And I think that's what a lot of people did, especially
Mhm.
a lot of
yeah.
sparkling things like televisions and all sorts of crap that is way more powerful than anything the church could provide as a kid, especially
As a
kids
kid.
in trouble that doesn't have a great foundation. So I don't know. I think
Yeah, having too many options is bad, right? Maybe we should have fewer options. I agree. There's the aestheticism again.
And then then there's also like screens. I mean, what is Grim Grizz his whole shtick, the set, the altar to set. It's like, I mean, I feel like I grew up on like skirting the edge of like just like total internet addiction and all this stuff, and and then I look at the generation beneath me, and I'm like, 10 years younger than me, and I'm like, how are any of you making it out of that? Like
They're-
when you've got those things held out to you. So yeah, I mean, I think that stuff's
Leave
impossible
social
to
media.
underestimate. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
so
and
it's
they do.
interesting.
They do, right? They do make it out. And the funny part is you see what happens when there's no church. So you can complain about, oh, church is too strict. But then when there's no church, everything's worse. And everyone's like, oh,
Yeah.
the answer's right in front of you still. It hasn't changed.
Well, it's something that Peterson sold that was really great idea. You have to be able to tell a better story, and I think like that's what in my case. But I can only see the better story once I realized the story that I was in was complete trash, and that it was a story that was constructed over years of trashing myself, and realizing that I was much of the cause of that. But I couldn't hear the better story until I could hear the better story. And so, like, yes, asceticism is a great
Right.
idea, but the story about asceticism should be more powerful in some sense than the actual asceticism itself, because
Yeah.
otherwise nobody's going to buy
It's
it.
not even, it's not even talked
There's
about.
actually it's not a Catholic person, but a person who tells that story well. That the story of asceticism is Jocko Willink. If you're familiar with Jocko Willink, and discipline equals freedom, right?
But Jocko, you find he's not the most excited about the discipline and the asceticism. He's the most excited about what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm
Yes.
helping people
The
run better
accomplishment.
businesses. Right. And so that's the problem that happened in Quebec. And that's where this asceticism goes awry, is when you forget why you're doing what you're doing. You
Yes.
forget the telos there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what. So people, they were going out, they were doing the processions, they were doing the 40 hours devotions, they were going to confessions,
Yeah.
but they forgot what it was all about. Some of the priests got abusive, right? Because when you've got that
Well,
big,
it's-
powerful structure
okay.
that attracts the wrong sort of people, and you have to have extreme safeguards against that, and it's
Okay.
never going to be perfect.
Mhm.
There's an element in here because it's
Yeah.
called the Quiet Revolution in Quebec, and it happens in the 1960s. So I think that you're right, Father Eric. You're absolutely right about it. Is that they lost they lost the connection to the why of what they were doing, and there was a problem in the formation of too much like, oh, just get them through the sacraments, push them through the rituals, force everyone to do this, and that made them that made their like it made the foundation of their faith very weak, and I think
The
a big
rains
disruption
came and the floods. The
yeah.
rains fell
Well,
and the floods
don't
came, and the
don't
house was
ban me for this,
completely
Father
ruined.
Eric, but I'm going to say that I think Vatican II was a big component of that because it
If we
caused
just
a disruption.
reaction to Vatican II, then we're okay.
Sorry, what?
The reaction to Vatican
Yeah,
II, we're okay.
I don't think not necessarily the document, but
Well, there's a couple things. I mean,
the letter of the document, but it was the disruption of all that structure that they'd they'd built their traditions, their foundations on, right? So like I remember my mom tells me stories about like how it was a disruption to her faith because she had been told all her life, well, we can't, we fast on Fridays, you can't eat meat on Fridays, and then all of a sudden it's okay to eat meat on Fridays, and that was even as a child, this whole thing is like you can just do that, like you can just like change the
I
word.
guess it wasn't that important, actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And there was a lot of that.
Exactly.
Too. I mean, there's that. Then there's the cultural compounding that happens,
Mhm.
and the cultural compounds are very, very heavy, very, very attractive. And if you think you can fight them on your own, I mean, it's so difficult. And this is, I think, okay. So between what Grim Grizz talks about and what I talked about is off. This is what we're talking about. Like we're trying. Like I'm constantly asking the question thing, like something like, what is the most religious practice that you engage in? What is the most religious presence of your life, right? And I would say, for me, if I'm very honest, it would be the attention I spend to my phone. And it's just as simple as I wake up in the morning. Yes, I pray, but well, then after that, I spend a lot more time on my phone. Plus, I'm listening to stuff all day on my phone. When I'm seeking an answer to a problem in my life, do you think I go to prayer? Sometimes. Mostly, I go to Google. And so like and I'm somebody who considers myself a Christian and poorly disciplined, and so these are the things that I'm talking about. The cultural compounds are more of the things that we should be. How do we overcome that? I mean, yes, we as the church, like the capital C church or whatever, should be looking at itself, but not where it's necessarily messing up right now, but and where it's gone wrong in the past. I think those things are important, but where do we need to crank up the volume on what it is? Where do we lean into our tradition to sell the better story? That's what's, I think,
Well,
most.
but Chad, the real problem is that, and this is very much what was done by the dictators in the 20th century, right? You can't tell a good story from a bad story very easily. It's not something that people can just do magically because they can. And we're living in an age where people are betting literally billions of dollars writing bad stories that any idiot can tell are bad stories. And yet, some people watch those movies. Some
Right.
people read those books. So it's not that straight. You can't just put a good story out there and people will flock to it. It's not build a better mousetrap and they will come. That's very,
Well,
we
right.
all have the knowledge, or we don't. And if we weren't formed with it by being forced to conform to something like the church with its liturgy, then we have a problem. And that's the issue, is that it's not as easy as saying, oh, we have the good, and therefore you just go for the good. You have
right.
to be able to circumnavigate the good story. You have to have a method for poking holes in the bad stuff. And when nobody's pointing at things and going, that's definitely bad, or that's definitely evil, then you have a problem, because even the Sam Harris trick of move away from evil won't work if no one's pointing out evil.
Yeah.
And that's the world we're living in. No one wants to judge. Well, that's great, but now no one can judge. And if you can't judge, you can't tell a good story from a bad story.
You want like basically you want something like whatever it was that Peterson did, but the Christian version of it in some sense, because like what he did was he told a better story, and when he did it in the first half hour of the biblical life. That's where he did it. That's where he hooked everybody. It was within the first half hour, 45 minutes of the biblical life. And like that's what really like grabbed people. And so yeah, that's what I mean by telling the better story. You don't need to tell a big long one, but what is the best punch and how do you do that? And
Chad,
Usually it's
Chapman?
hard in how you live, really.
Right. So I was going to throw something in there because, like, you can say like there's a really great story, but like think about like the best story, the things that people consider to be like the best stories mainstream wise. It's like first things I think of are Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and Star Wars. It's like those are the three, and there's like Marvel is something else. No one that says those are good stories. They just like them for other reasons. But like when people love those things, like what do they want to do? Well, they learn Elvish, or they dress up in Star Wars things, or and it's like, what are they doing? Well, they're trying to participate in something. They want something that they can like
Yes.
actually, your point about where am I most religious? It's like I'm on my phone. I pray, but then I'm on my phone a whole bunch. It's like, yeah, what's the thing that you're participating in? So it's not just like, what do I mentally affirm as the best story? Not even what am I emotionally drawn to as the best story, but like, what am I trying to put myself into?
Yes.
And so it's that ability to participate that is also like profoundly important. And the weird thing about that is that like this is where asceticism comes back in, is that you can know, hey, this is the best story, I should be engaging in it. And then you've got all kinds of other parts of your body and all kinds of demons that are like, yeah, you could do that, but you could also play out the porn story. You could also play out the shallow whatever story, and on and on and on and on and on. And so it actually requires discipline to continue to live in that story. And like, I'd argue that, any enduring religion has some capacity to do that. Really, like Jacob, what is like the practice of Judaism is like you're rehearsing Israel's history over and over, right? You're like living that out again and again and again. It's like, here's the Day of Atonement, right? Here's Passover. Here's, the Feast of the Tabernacles, and on and on and on. It's like, what are you doing? You're getting inside that story. And then you have to do it with other people, because otherwise you're just going to give up.
But you have to be able to whittle in to the culture. See, this is what Peterson did, is he was able to say things that were general enough and specific enough to grab you by the face and say, listen to this. Right? But he didn't have enough of a good follow-up. And this is where I think...
Yeah.
He doesn't have participation. Peterson doesn't have a story you can participate in, and that's why I don't even think he has a story. I think what he's doing is he's showing you the edge of materialism and saying, here's where the tools you've been given fail. And it is about participation, Ted, because to your point, like, did some of these people, like, did you go to all the Star Wars events, or just some of them? And why didn't you go to all of them? You devote your whole life, right? Because they weren't trained. They weren't trained in liturgy. They weren't trained in, like the Jews do so well, right? Like, we're just going to replay our history all the time, constantly, until finally we, because you need that pattern in order to survive better. And yeah, it is about participation. And so it's not, what Peterson does is just say, give you that, because there's this curiosity mode that people forget. It's this exploratory mode in your brain. We can go into exploratory mode and say, wait a minute, there's a crack here. There's a thing that doesn't fit. There's something that doesn't make any sense. And when you reach that with materialism, Peterson's good at saying, here's the edge of materialism where it just doesn't work. This logic, reason, rationality just can't explain things. And that gets you curious and interested. And then, and this is where Vanderklay is right, then there's, after that, though, there's no place to go to participate, right? Because he doesn't lead you all the way to the door of the church.
You should get in touch with Eric's father and replicate the program that his father has made. And that will do a very good thing. But you have to be able to tell the story that gets you there. Now, with that said, I'm going to go participate in being a husband. So thank you guys, and good night.
2 thumbs up on being a husband.
Right.
See you in Chino.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yes.
I
yes.
I just want to take that story thread or a little bit, and I think one of the mistakes you're talking about participation is saying what the church ought to do. Is there's a danger of being too messianic when our Messiah has already come and he's already with us, right? Jacob shaking his head.
Christians are in no way in danger of being too messianic. The fact that the vast majority of Christians are not looking forward to the coming of the Messiah, the second coming, call third coming, I don't care. That should tell you something.
I'm just saying, but no, figuratively, about waiting for one big figure to come and save us, like a Jordan Peterson or a Donald Trump or DeSantis or like some other
Well, but
equivalent church.
nobody's proposing that.
When figureheads.
That's
No,
the
no,
problem.
I'm saying the alternative to that is to let the Holy Spirit work through you, right? Is to let us.
No. The alternative to only having one Jordan Peterson is to have 20 of them, or 40 of them, or 100,
but,
or every single Christian. That's the alternative, not the Holy
That's what I'm
Spirit.
saying.
The
That's what I'm saying.
alternative is just more Jordan Petersons.
Wait,
Okay, but
what makes that the alternative?
You still got to stand up and be part of the church. I'm saying this.
Yeah,
You can do these things.
Hold on, I want to address Andrew's point. To be fair to Andrew, there are other alternatives too, but like this is that binary thinking. The alternative to this is the Holy Ghost. No, it's not. That might be one alternative, but it's not.
I feel like I should be more careful with my language here, because the references are too much of a red herring of what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that, you know, we're part of the church, and we can live our own attractive stories, and that will bring other people to the church and resonate with the people around us.
Only if you tell them.
Father Eric.
Or you don't tell them, you act them out, right? You don't just tell them, you participate them, and invite other people to participate them in them. Sorry.
Father Eric, can I ask a question? Are Christians in danger of being too messianic?
I don't think the term messianic by itself is specific enough for me to render judgment on that question. Can we look forward to the coming of Jesus too much? I don't think so. No. Could we put messianic expectations on the wrong figure? Yes, happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Can we?
I agree. 100% happens all the time, especially with Christians.
Can we sit on our hands and wait for someone else to do something and say the church ought to do something?
I feel like Xander and Jacob are saying the same thing. I mean, like, the purpose of the whole telos in Christianity is participation in God. It's theos. It's deification, just like which is through the Son. And so, like, Xander's saying, hey, maybe like this could operate on individuals within the church. It's like, so that they look like the Messiah. Yeah. Like,
and what did Jesus do? He went out and did stuff and invited people to help.
And then sent them out. It's like, I mean, oh my goodness, there's just some stuff.
Can I point out that messianic actually is the exact same word as Christian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all anointed.
It's just Greek. It's Greek and Hebrew. Yeah,
it's oily.
It's the same word.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of the confusion, Xander, is that the church is all the Christians. Like, that's what the church is. It isn't any. I'm not referring to anything else. I'm saying yes, all the Christians need to. The problem is, if you walk down the street now, you don't know who's doing what and why.
Okay, so what I did.
Nobody has any idea why they're doing. Oh, I'm a Christian. That's why I do. Well, that would be good to know. And I went over this to some extent in the steep slope, gentle slope conversation with Vanderklay. I don't know if you saw it, the live stream that I did with him, right? And then I followed up with a video from the engineer guy, Bill Hammock. Very interesting channel. If you haven't seen the engineer guy channel, it's fascinating for engineers, but he's just doing this new series. And in the new series, he's actually basically saying, no, science is no good. See, they were building cathedrals without advanced mathematics and science, but the way they did it is engineering. So it should be engineering. And it's like, it's like engineering is now trying to displace science as the top dog. Well, why isn't the church out there saying, no, it's us, guys. It's us. That's the recession of the church, where they're not taking the proper place to say science and engineering are actually all embedded in religion, period, full stop, end of statement. That's the framing. Well, it is not being done, though, right? I mean, Bill Hammock's out there doing his thing for engineering, and other people are out there doing their thing for science being the high thing, whether it's Lawrence Krauss or any of these other clowns, right? I mean, and almost nobody's out there saying, no, dummy, it's religion, which is what should be said.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what Peterson was saying. But I mean, Mark, you do even have to ask the question of, like, so there's like this thing, and then there's everyone's pumping out videos that go on the algorithm that are sorted by the algorithm and presented. And like, those are all forms of, to take whoever said that's sense making, right? It's like, we're saying, right, you're saying, get it out there in the economy, in the marketplace of ideas. And it's like, you have to take a step back and say, like, is that how things work? Is that even how they can work? I mean, because to go back to Christ, like Christ in the marketplace of ideas, it wasn't working all that well on the marketplace of ideas.
It did, because despite the terrible ending, right, which is like the most suffering ever, according to Peterson, it worked. And that's the thing. Like the problem is, if you don't see it, if you live hidden, this is where this is my big objection. If you live hidden, then you're leading everybody astray. Actually, what you're doing by living hidden, by not letting people know, no, I do this because I'm a Christian, is you're leading them astray. Automatically. That's already a problem for me. Already.
What does living hidden mean?
Well, so again, I go into the Basilica in Columbia, South Carolina, which I've never been into until Father Eric dragged me in the building. I never had a desire to go in there because it was not even close to like the 5th prettiest church that I've seen in Columbia. Okay, and almost all the other ones are not Catholic. Well, that's weird. Why wouldn't the Catholic Church be the prettiest? Until you get inside, Andrew. Until you get inside, and then it's like, oh my goodness, this is the most beautiful church in South Carolina, as near as I could tell. And it's like, why is it so pretty inside and not outside? Why wouldn't you draw people in with the beauty? Everyone's saying, oh, beauty's going to save the world. Beauty's going to save. I doubt it, but it would be nice to see some. That would be good.
Okay.
Wait, is that the hidden part? It's hiding the beauty behind the facade?
You can't see it. It's hidden, right? You go past the basilica. It's just a plainish brick building. You can tell it's a church-y kind of a thing. It doesn't even have the prettiest stained glass windows within 4 blocks, And then when you get inside, it's unbelievably gorgeous. Like it's like next level. Well, that's pretty hidden, I would say. If you have to go inside the building to see how pretty it is, that's relatively hidden. I don't know how much more hidden you can get, really, other than not existing. But at that point, we're talking about a different thing, right?
I thought you meant on like a personal.
It's both. It's both. That's the higher representation of the Christians not being out there doing things that people see and go, oh wow, that looks like a game I could play. Yeah, it is a game you can play, helping your neighbors and doing things, to be a good person. You could play that. Again, I see that nowhere. Not absolutely nowhere, but like it's really not. And look, years ago you did see it. And I'm saying no, there's a quantitative difference here, not just a qualitative difference. There's a quantitative difference here too. That's not good.
It's almost as if we could say that nobody lights a lamp in order to put it under a bushel basket, but instead they put it on a lampstand so that it can shine to the whole house.
Yeah.
Someone could say that.
Somebody could say that. Somebody write that down.
Somebody could.
Now, Jacob, you had mentioned to me in a direct message that you'd wanted to do a little bit of Chino chat here. And so before we wrap this up, I'm going to give you the whatever was on your mind that you wanted to bring up.
I just wanted to remind people that Chino is happening. And like, if you are going to Chino, hey, hit me up because I am going to be there and Father Eric's going to be there. And I don't know who else is going to be there.
Grim Grizz is allegedly on his way. He's been doing videos from the road. Right, I brought it up earlier, Jacob. I tried.
Chad is be there on his way. Teo is coming, and
out on Tuesday.
Anybody who's flying into LAX on Wednesday is welcome to come over to my place, which is not far from it. On their way to Chino, because Chino is far from LAX.
It's 10 degrees farther away. As we found out on this stream, it's 10 degrees farther.
It has weather, unlike LA, which has no weather.
Actually, I sometimes like visiting places that have like snow and stuff like that. But I mean, I have to admit, despite all of the horrible things about Los Angeles, the fact that 90% of the year, I have a high of 75 and a low of 60.
That's kind of nice.
I
I
can't
mean,
even.
it's
I
room
can't even.
temperature outside always.
That sounds awful.
Oh,
It really does. Even I can't abide. Well, it's too cold for me anyway. It's got to be in the 80s for me. But yeah.
My apartment literally, because of the window treatments and stuff and the windows, literally it is the same temperature inside and outside of my apartment. And it's not a huge deal.
No, it sounds perfect. Why do you need heating and cooling in LA? It sounds like you don't. They're pointless.
Yeah.
You tip.
oh, alrighty.
Yeah, go
Well,
to
that
Chino.
does-
Have fun. Enjoy yourselves, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll be wishing you were there, Mark, to tell us why we were wrong.
Now I'm gonna,
Hey,
I'm
my
gonna avoid
dad is coming. He will tell us all why we're all wrong. My father is convinced of two things. There are two types of crazy people in the world: people who become psychotherapists and people who are religious.
Oh,
Oh dear.
oh
And he's
man.
coming?
And Catherine's
That's
going to
gonna
be
be
there.
great.
She's both.
That is true.
I'm gonna be there, and I'm both.
Oh my goodness.
My father, I don't know how much he's going to attend, although my nephew is interested in coming. And so if my nephew comes, then that's more likely that my dad will come. So it's going to be, yeah, if you want to see somebody who thinks I'm wrong all the time, my dad, you will meet my dad and he will explain to you why I'm wrong about everything always.
What a proud papa.
Sounds good. Now I'm upset I'm not going, Jacob.
You know, you could still get a.
That's okay. I'm not going either.
Alrighty. Well, I'm not sure when our little Sunday night live streams are going to happen again because of the future and its uncertainty. And so I will say before we close off, God bless you all now and always.
Mark and I will have to pick it up.
Maybe.